let's listen to what this man is trying to say.
Have you ever gotten really worked up about a particular issue? Maybe it was dealing with a family problem or even a theoretical political idea, and then a few weeks later you look into that very same issue and realize you were wrong. That's always a strange feeling, isn't it? You look back and realize you doubled down on an idea that turned out to be false. It can be very humbling, but what if you never get the chance to step away from the issue and come back with a clear mind? What if this one particular issue is the only thing you can think about? It consumes your entire mind, and you're so blinded by that passion for your idea that you completely ignore it, failing every step of the way. This is exactly what happened to Joseph Stalin. Communism, Marxist Leninism, it sounded very promising to a lot of people. The redistribution of wealth and the liberation of the working class people. A government truly run and controlled by the very people who live under that government. Communism promised all this and more. But what happened in Russia when they finally got to live in this communistic paradise Marx spoke so highly of? The worst collective suffering humanity has ever endured.
I'm sorry, I have to stop this here. Because this guy is talking about the period of ruling of Joseph Stalin as the leader of the party, not as the tyrant who single-handedly control all the country. During this period, there was First World War ending, Civil War, invasion of many different countries in Russia to, I don't know, try to rob the country, industrialization, collectivization, changes. Many uneducated people come to power because people who was in power and was educated was too corrupt, too unwilling, so unwilling to change something that came new people to power, came new people who just simply tried to do this. Try to do this correctly as they see it, but they was not very good educated people in every area of I don't know, human society, of human civilization. There's always uneducated people who come to the top, who came to power. The Trump is obvious example of this. So this man is talking about the struggling of the people who just overthrow the government of Tsar and Emperor actually, because Nikolai was emperor, not the Tsar. So they throw them away and they liberate themselves. There was 2 wars, there was almost endless invasion, and there was industrialization that should go much higher temps, much higher rate, because Stalin knew that war is coming, war with somebody. It doesn't really matter with who, but war will come, and very soon. And in this situation, in 30s, in late 30s, even in the beginning of the 30s, throughout the 30s years, life actually was very good in USSR. I guess you didn't know that and didn't care, but I had to make this remark. So
Want to know some of the estimates for civilian deaths under Stalin? There are some that are as high as 61 million people.
This number came from one one single source, and this source is American. This source made in 60s, because I even interested in how this number 60 million people was estimated, because USSR was closed country. We do not let journalists or some investigators in. Therefore, how can you even come up with this number of 60 million people? Easy. You just create it. You say 60 million people, Joseph Stalin was bad. By the latest estimates, every single person who died from hands of Nazis, from hands of Japanese, from, I don't know, suffering, struggling, hunger during the World War II, all estimates, it's about 20 million people. 20 million people died because of invasion in Russia. If, I don't know, will he going to talk about the repressions, but if he will, we will be back to the real numbers that Russian historians came up with, and not even Russian historians, even some American historians are okay with these numbers, because it's obvious journalistics, it's obvious science, it's obvious history, no, but not it's invented in, I don't know, in Solzhenitsyn books or some other people books.
Million deaths of ordinary people, families, children, women, fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, lovers. That's not military deaths. These are ordinary citizens just trying to live their lives, and 61 million of them were killed under.
Author, don't make this so tragic. If you lying, if you misleading people, if you trying to convince people in numbers that unreal, yeah, you should make it tragic. But when you talking about the numbers, just numbers, you can speak easily and don't make it so tragically. Numbers, oh my god, oh how it's bad, oh my god. No, it's just a simple number, 61 million. Yes, it's a big numbers, of course, but it's a lie. It's an obvious lie who was created and invented by American people, American citizen, single American citizen. Sorry, I forgot his name, but if it will be needed, I can come up with the name, I guess, if I can find the right video.
Stalin's regime. That number balloons when you start taking into account military deaths and the deaths of people who had communist revolutions in their own countries as a result of Stalin's involvement. We'll never.
I'm sorry, do you even know the history of Russia? Why do you even take this topic if you don't know anything about the history of my country? Stalin was absolutely against this idea of international revolution. International revolution idea was made up by Trotsky and supported by Trotsky. That is why Trotsky was enemy of the state. The enemy of the state, because in such a hard conditions, in such a hard times, Trotsky wanted the world revolution and turning over from capitalism to socialism or communism, whatever. And he was advocating for this, etc. Stalin was against this idea. Stalin understand that it's our country, that it's USSR need all the efforts of Russian people to survive what war that will come in years to come. Sorry, he knew it. He was against the world revolution idea. Of course, he support people who start the revolution, because it was, we are the people and they are the people. If they are the people want to overthrow some regime of some monarchy, why not overthrow them? If they struggling to survive because of capitalistic people, well, why not help them? Why not help the common people? For God's sake, you at least read some Russian books or Russian historian. I'm become very emotional because you're such an idiot. And idiotism, it's something that fires me up always. And I'm commenting on this and I'm doing comments about this because you're an idiot. I'm sorry, you're an idiot. You just translating propaganda from the 50s. For God's sake.
Know exactly how many people died, but the number is unimaginable. The very next question I asked,
20 million people, 20, something about along those lines, from 18 to 24 million people. What you mean unimaginable? Almost all these numbers is here. From 18 to 24 million people estimated died during the period of ruling of this horrifying, terrific, terrible man who single-handedly was ruling the country. It was not the case. Senators was chosen from the fabrics, from the communes, from some working collectives, and sent to the parliament to share the people's will. From the people, the working people. It's not like you choose the senator and he goes over there in your senate and work there all the time. No, there were simple workers who work at the factory or commune or kolkhoz, and doesn't matter. They work together, they choose one man and send this man to senate for one day or a week to this man vote for law or some policy, etc. And then after he does his job, he get back to the collective and work at his workplace. This is what democracy is in essence, and this is what happening in Soviet Russia during that period, during the Joseph Stalin rule.
what on earth could have happened to this poor soul to bring him to do such a terrible thing? What needs to happen to a human being to make them capable of killing millions of innocent?
Maybe he should be Adolf Hitler, for example. Because I see nothing about Stalin here, but I hear about Hitler. He killed millions just because he wanted to, I don't know. Please, I understand that after you probably will be talking about only about the life of the Joseph Stalin, how he was struggling, how he came up to this idea, and etc. Already I see that you don't even know the history of my country. Why do you even bother to do some cast about this? Why? I don't understand. What the hell? What is wrong with you? Buddy, if you don't know the history, don't try to play history.
People. And I don't buy the whole "he was just crazy" thing. That's a load of dismissive.
Buddy, he was very pragmatic man. He was I guess socialist for a long time, for a long period of his time. He won a war, not single-handedly of course, but he created the strategy. He created the strategy to be prepared to the war and to how to fight the war, etc. For God's sake, what you mean crazy? He win a war, a biggest war in the history of mankind. Crazy, of course.
Bullshit. You can never understand the dark side of human beings by calling it crazy. Insanity is not an excuse for genocide. Some other history podcasts can use this crazy excuse, but not here, because this episode is going to take a deep dive into this monster.
Buddy, you should take a deep dive into your head and clean all the trash out of your head first. Then learn some history. How the feminists say, educate yourself, for God's sake, educate yourself, please, please, you need it, because you don't know a damn thing about the history of my country. You don't know a damn thing about the Joseph Stalin. You don't know it, and you do not care. All I hear is simple propaganda from 50s, from 60s, from 70s, when USSR was big and awful and bloody regime of the Joseph Stalin, and we have to fight him because why does then United States was ally with with Soviet Russia? Why does USA supply Russia with technologies? Never think about it, never thought about it. No? Well, try to think about this. There was, I don't know, million, I guess, American workers and American engineers and American entrepreneurs in Soviet Russia during the period of 20s and 30s. When in your country was crisis, we were on the rise. We create industrial revolution. It's not that I'm saying that there was no innocent victims. I guess you will never came to this point, so you must understand the repressions of 30s, repressions of 37 and 38. Only those 2 years, 1937, 1938, only those 2 years was those repressions which was afterwards set on the scale that Stalin does it all the time he was in power. It's not. It's just simply not. During the period of 1937, 1938, Joseph Stalin, by the request of some citizens of the country, there was even how it called, requests from the citizens of the country for to make some actions about the people who stole from the country. In essence, it sounds like this. But Stalin in 37 was signed some law that was understand incorrectly at the places. It wasn't like Stalin personally signed every death penalty. Are you idiots, really? Are you really think that he signed every death penalty by his own? No, of course not. But during this period of 2 years, there was a law that was misinterpreted as everything during that period, because it's like, as I said, many uneducated people came to power, and therefore they make mistakes. Of course, they use their power to their advantage. Of course, it's in every system. As soon as problem was realized, was taken actions, and was how it calls amendments was made for this law, and repression stopped. During that period, many people suffer. Many people was sentenced and sent to prisons, jails, gulag, etc. Of course, yes. But as soon as problem was realized, many people who was responsible for these mistakes or this misinterpretation of the law, they was sentenced, they was prosecuted, they was sent to the same gulags and same prisons and same jails, because they make a mistake, because they use their power to their advantage. No one asked them to do such things. Many people suffer then after was rehabilitated. Of course they already suffer, but okay, whatever. Some people was even killed, sentenced to death penalty, of course. But the fun fact, right after the World War II, Stalin signed prohibition of death penalty. He prohibited this thing. He said no more. That same Stalin that you think that bloodthirsty, asshole, crazy, etc., tyrannical. No, he prohibited death penalty because he understands that country which was at war for 4 years lost many people, millions of people. And most of those people who died at the war was men of reproductive age, and therefore we need to do everything that in our power to recreate the population of the country. And he prohibited the death penalty in 45 or 46, I don't really remember. I'm sorry, I'm not a historian, but and therefore you must understand that this man sentenced everyone, millions of people, tens of millions, billions of people sentenced to death, and right after the war he prohibited the death penalty that he so much liked. Is this sound ridiculous for you? Because it is. Sounds ridiculous. For God's sake, author, I'm not going to listen after, because I understand that after will be some soul searching about how the Stalin became such a crazy maniac, etc. But it's all bullshit. It's like, I don't know, looking for motivation in Superman. You create your own personal super villain, and you create your own personal explanation why Stalin become such a tyrant. I'm sorry, author, you're an idiot or what? I many times already said that, because you must understand that level of this is like idiotism, total idiotism, and not more. Well, it will be the first podcast, and I guess I'm sorry for shitty microphone, but I have no another. I have nothing else but this microphone, so I just wanted to say about this. I don't know, it's such idiotism. And I guess I will see you in the next one.